gonna try not to show you too much, but it's gonna be fine, I hope. So, I think us as programmers and iOS programmers, the worst thing that we have is the fear of losing control. And that is because when we get hired, we are essentially hired for our opinions. And I don't mean opinions in a very simplistic way. I don't mean it that there's people preferring spaces over tabs, which is obviously the correct answer. But I mean it in a bigger way. Opinion as in the sum of all your experiences and the way you approach stuff, the way you handle problems, the way you actually bring to the team. And your opinion is especially important when the team is small, because you have 2, 3, 4 people. Maybe that's a big team, but you have 2, 3 iOS programmers. And while having different opinions is useful, because you need some kind of discussion. You need to see which tool is the best or something like that. Having too much having an opinion that is too much far out, that is blocking you from shipping or from doing something, is just too much. And there's a famous saying from a very good company that is move fast and break things. And you cannot have to do that as a startup, because you need to be able to actually ship, because that's the most important thing that you can do. And moreover, it's actually your asset, because you don't have enough resources, you don't have enough reach, but you can be very, very fast and just ignore the title in the subtitle. We don't talk about that. But eventually, if you're having success, the team gets bigger, and it goes from 1 programmer to 2. We actually look like that. And I just love this slide. It's just, the dog is cute. It's good enough. And the team gets really big, and it gets to maybe 10 people. It gets maybe to 20 people, to 30 people, like we have in Babylon Health. It's 30 iOS developers, not just people in the team. So it gets tricky, right? Because you have to make decisions. And well, if you make a decision, you're going to be making a decision for 30 people, or even more, because it spreads around the company. And usually the way it goes is you start having these giant meetings with, 30 people. And if you've ever been in a meeting with 30 people with opinions, like we have, it's tricky, right? And by the way, I found some footage of me trying to speak in a meeting like that. And it gets really tricky. And often what happens in a meeting like that is that you choose an option, you choose what to do, but it's the safest approach. It's not actually the best approach, the one that fits everybody's needs, which is impossible, I guess. So I'm going to say I have a plan. I have a suggestion maybe on how to approach these things and these decisions. And we finally go back to the title of the talk, reversible versus irreversible. And by that, reversible and irreversible, if we would go to the dictionary, I haven't gone to the dictionary to see the definition, but probably it would be something like, reversible is something that you can, reverse. You can go back, you can roll back, it's easy to do. Irreversible is something that it gets tricky, and probably is not reversible. Once you've done it, I hope you took the best decision, because it's gone. So good luck. And I do think that there are no really irreversible decisions in our job. You can always revert the commit, you can always change a tool, like remove it. But sometimes it gets really, really, really tricky to go back. So there are de facto irreversible decisions, or at least decisions that are so much a pain in the back to reverse that it's tricky. And let's make an example of reversible decision, what I mean when I talk about that. Let's say that you have an iOS lead, and they come and they've been watching the point-free videos. And they've been watching the videos, and they saw the custom operators, and they come like one day in the office, and they're like that. custom operators. This is the new stuff. I love it. And you buy into the hype because they're cool, they're nice, and it's the point free guys are doing it, so why not? We need to follow. And everything is fine. You use the pipe, you use the compose forward. Did I get the name right? Use maybe if you're really, really brave, use the optional pipe. But then you kind of, one day you wake up, you go to work, and you see some code that looks like that. And you see the one on the left. And this is actually a very nice, it's a very nice example that the guys did in Point Free. I took it from them. But you see this thing, and it's like, what the heck is that? I have no idea. And then you think a bit more, and you see that, oh, I remember, it's the fish operator. And I still don't know what it does. So it's fine. It's nice. So you kind of decide, okay, let's the pipe we like, the compose forward we like. It's very apparent its usage, but the fish I don't. It's like, what is that? So you decide to remove it, and you have a person that is going to remove it. He spends hours looking through the code base, and he finds the 3 times that it was actually used it, and you say, okay, maybe we can remove it. The abstraction is not worth it. And this is a reversible change, as in it's very easy to do. Maybe it's going to take some time, but it's the impact on the people. It's not a lot, really. Meanwhile, the irreversible changes or the irreversible changes that take a really long time to go back from and are painful. Let's take, again, the iOS lead. And he comes one day in the office, and he says, we've been using our own stack, our own custom built thing to handle networking. But I've seen this dependency, we need to introduce it, and it's like functional, and it's reactive, and it's probably mining like Bitcoins, something like that. But it has machine learning, I don't know how it's possible. It has all the buzzwords. And you decide to introduce it. And then you actually plan the work, you have the big meetings, because of course you have to have the meeting. And there's a discussion, there's this big discussion. How are we going to pass it through the layers? We have like 10 layers in our architecture, and we need to pass it through. And then you're talking about, should we use like function injection for dependency injection? Should we use property? Should we use? And there's a guy in the back saying, we should use singletons. And because there's always a guy like that. And then there is no guy anymore because he got fired for saying that. So yeah, we're discussing about how to inject it properly. And then you come up with a solution that you think it works in theory. Not in theory, underlined. And you do it, and you start implementing it, and you see some creaks. You see something that is working, but could be better, but you say, okay, maybe it's fine. Our previous solution was kind of like that. And then after a while you say, okay, you start passing it with the old implementation as well. And then one day you start saying, you decide as a team, okay, we're gonna just use the new one from now on. And you do. And then it takes a few weeks, and then you notice that it's not actually working. It's not the best decision. It's something that, in theory, look nice. And we know the saying that in theory and practice are the same. In practice, no, not really. And it could be like, and it goes something like this, right? You think you're doing something good, you prepare for everything, and then life happens, and it messes up. So I have a suggestion maybe on how to handle these things, these decisions. And what I'm proposing is going back to how nature works, how everything works, and is taking an evolutionary approach. It sounds a bit weird, but trust me. And I'm not gonna explain how evolution works because you're all smart people, right? But let's explain it just in case. And let's say you have a species. Let's say you have a few individuals or a few groups, and each individual group have some modification, some mutation, and the environment puts pressure into them, and then one gets selected. It's not the right word, but this is not a biology class, so let's keep it that. One gets selected, and then the other die probably or disappear, and this one gets the option, well, has more offspring. maybe we could do something like that. We could apply something like that in the, and it's been working very well because we're here because of that. So we could apply something like that. Maybe we could choose like different approaches, see what works, and kill off the teams that didn't work. Maybe let's not do that. It's too much. And one example I can say is, for example, if you have a team that is working on something very animation heavy, like an onboarding flow, which receives some data from backend or even maybe even nothing, if it's like a registration or something like that. And one team that is doing basically just displaying content that it receives from backend. In this case, one team is gonna really not care about backend, how it's structured, how it talks, how it communicates with the front end. The other team is gonna be pushing a lot for something, a solution, something like a BFF. And for those that don't know, it's backend for front end. So basically, it's taking backend, putting an intermediate, I don't know how to say that word, like an intermediate step, let's do it like this way, between backend and front end. And that step in the middle is actually translating stuff for how the front end wants. And if the decision was taken top down, if we got this big meeting and we chose the safest option, maybe we wouldn't have this BFF. Maybe we would say, okay, the backend, the normal way of backend, how it talks with front end is fine. It doesn't really hurt anyone. And yes, you're gonna have to do some mapping and some changes like that, but it's fine. But then the team is not able, the single team that does that displays content is not going to be able to actually fit the tool and the processes to what they need. So maybe we should try to think about having teams. And if you're not in a big company, you can also think about just features or pieces in the code base that are just really fit for the purpose that they need to be able to do, and are not just the default standard approach that you always take. And I think the most important thing about this thought is having like independent units is that when you when you take a decision about the whole team, you run the risk of having the whole company disrupted. You run the risk of having everyone fail. And it's a risk that you cannot really take. It's just too much. It's just too much of a problem. Meanwhile, if you have just one team getting it wrong, yes, it's painful for that team. Yes, it's going to be a problem, but it's just one team. It's fine. At the end of the day, it's fine. And I would say it's not great to use the words of a very wise man. It's not great, not terrible. And there are, of course, there are drawbacks because sometimes if you work in a team that does something, I do BFF, I do something that works with the BFF, and then there is another team that does something completely different. In that case, if a PR comes up and I see that code and I'm like, I have no idea what's going on here. But at the end of the day, we're smart people. We know code. Swift is all the same. The architecture is probably the same, so we can kind of work. We can kind of understand again. And again, it doesn't have to be. I'm speaking from experience from 30 people because 30 iOS people like in Babylon, but it doesn't have necessarily have to be like that. You can have a team like a small team, maybe 4 people, or even your own code base, and you don't need to have the same approach for everyone, for every single feature, every single piece of code, every part. You can try to experiment and maybe make it fit better to what it actually needs to do. And I have one more thing. I was actually planning to wear a yellow jacket. Is this one? I'm gonna put it on. Okay, so pretend that I did the whole the presentation with this jacket because it's just too hot to be wearing it. So today I actually discovered why the yellow jacket. Yeah. Today I actually discovered that today that is the day to bring awareness to mental health in young kids. And if you follow my Twitter, like Facebook, something like that, don't be a stalker. But if you follow that, if you by chance, you know that I care a lot about mental health. So maybe we are, and this is for kids. It's a charity and everything. It's in the UK, but I guess there are some in Italy as well, or wherever you live. And I think we are in a very, very, very privileged position as engineers because, like, we get to do what we love. The money is nice usually, so we can think people that are in a worse position than us, and even kids. And maybe we can donate something. And that's it, really. Thank you.